How are you? No, seriously, how are you? Now that you have been captured and raptured, how are you doing? If I had to take a guess, I would say you're doing well. Not as well as you could be, but you're doing well. But you will be really well in about a couple of days, right? Yes, when paths cross again, all will be much, much better. But in the meantime, you have the fact that you've been raptured to hold you over until that time comes. So today I want to talk about dominance. Yes, dominance. What does that word evoke within you? Some people it scares. Some people it brings them to life. Dominance. The funny thing is that we have an impression in life that everyone can and should dominate. But that's not true. Because to have a position of dominance, you have to know what to do, don't you? Because in order to dominate, there has to be something or someone who is submitting, who is in a position of submission. You can't dominate a motherfucking thing unless something is submitting to you, correct? Yeah, it makes sense. So a number of us like to walk around pretending as though we can dominate or we have dominance. But most people, that shit is fraud. It's fake. It's not real. But there are some who it comes naturally. It's ingrained, it's innate, it's a part of their being, it's a part of their soul, it is the essence of who they are. So how do you show your dominance? How do you mark your dominance? Do you mark it with an initial? Do you mark it, what you dominate, with an initial, like the letter L? Yes. There are many, many ways in which we can illustrate our dominance. Some mark it, and when it's said, it actually got done. What was said was done. So when you mark it, whether it be initial, it's unspoken, it's unseen, it's unheard, whatever. We all have our different ways of marking our dominance. Some it's blatant. Others, not so much. But there's different ways and different levels of dominance. And the reason why I'm focusing on it today is that you can't have dominance without submission. And unfortunately, the word submission, it has a negative connotation. It seems weak. It appears as though the one who is dominating is the all-powerful, the all-knowing. And the one that's submitting, they're insignificant. But what you guys don't seem to understand is that one cannot exist without the other. Yes, one cannot exist without the other. So if one cannot exist without the other, that naturally means they're both equals. They're counterbalancing. They balance one another out like yin and yang. To dominate, something has to submit. To submit means this is something that's dominating. But in society, how things are today, domination and submission is seen as something that is taboo. Very, very taboo. Because there's different degrees of dominating and submitting. And we play a number of different roles in society. Mother, father, son, daughter, whatever. And in those roles, those many different roles and hats we play throughout our lives, we are actually taking a position of dominance or submission. Yeah, it's something for you to think about. Many of us a lot of people actually play the role of submitting, whether they know it or not. Whether you work for someone, whether you're in a relationship, The list goes on and on and on. But we like to think that we're dominant. But to be dominant, that's an art, that's a skill, that is a mastery that does not come easy. And actually, it doesn't belong to most people because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's the difference between a leader and a follower. Most people are followers, and you need to be a follower for a reason. The role of dominating is something that's very, very difficult and is very delicate. And to be the one that dominates, it requires a lot of responsibility, a lot of care, a lot of thought. And it seems like it's the most powerful role, but it is powerful. But it's a lot of obligations. It's a lot of responsibility. And a lot of people cannot carry that well. You see, to dominate, that means you have to take care of you and the one that's submitting to you. Yes, I said taken care of. When people think of submission, they tend to think that one is the doormat. There's no doormat. To submit is a choice. And if you don't exercise that choice, you're not submitting, you're technically a slave. So let's assume that you're not a slave. If you choose to submit, the key word is choose, which means you had the power to choose. And if someone is choosing to submit, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it because there's a lot of respect that one has for the one you're submitting to. There's also a lot of trust that's being placed in the one that you're submitting to. And you are handing over the reins by choice. And you can always choose to take the shit back, let's be clear. So that is why to dominate and to submit, it is a very, very delicate balance. But if it's done well, it's very, very harmonious. Unfortunately, the role of dominating is seen as someone who's very aggressive, bullying, abusive. But it doesn't have to be the way. When it's that way, that means the person who is in the position of dominating, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Because to dominate, it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. It's actually very caring, it's loving, it's protective, it's supportive, it is nurturing, it is a beautiful thing. And to have the opportunity to be under one's canopy. When I say canopy, that's exactly what I meant. Someone's canopy of dominance. It can be a real blessing, a real treasure, a real treat. But it has to be the right canopy. It has to be the right canopy. Because when it's the right canopy, and if you people don't know what the fuck a canopy is, look that shit up. It's Canopy. A canopy. True dominance in a healthy, loving, balanced way. It's like a canopy. You are caring, protecting, guiding, and you're looking out for the ones that are residing underneath your canopy. And the person that is submitting to that trusts you and respects you enough to give you that opportunity to do so. What do you think about that? And what's even more intriguing, I find, as I personally get to know myself more and more, I am getting more and more intrigued about how dominance works. Because if you guys haven't figured out, I am a spitfire. I am a firecracker. But here's the funny thing about me. I'm actually very calm. Really, I'm very calm. I'm very serene. Now, what gets me going is how I'm being poked. I'm being poked. And being poked is a metaphor. Because I am like a pond, a calm pond. You can create ripples. You can create waves in that pond. Now, depending on who is creating those ripples in my pond or waves will depend on what the fuck you get. But most people don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do it. So what do they encounter from me? Well, They encounter my spitfireness. They encounter my beast ferocious mode. They encounter my wild Mustang, wild Siberian tiger mode, which means I will shred you. I don't like to, I don't want to, but I can do so. But what I'm learning that's even more special is that, yes, most people I've encountered, either they leave me be, which means my pond is calm, or they send waves through my pond, which means tsunami, difficult, demanding, is going to be coming your way. But more recently, what I have found or I've seen is that there is a difficult and demanding whisperer. Have you ever encountered a whisperer? Have you seen the movie Horse Whisperer? This is a person that can encounter or deal with difficult, wild horses. Some that can't be trained, they can't be, you can't ride them, you can't do anything with them because they just start bucking on people. You can't control them. And then there's just one special person that comes along, and they call that person the horse whisperer, because that person had the ability through many different ways to soothe, to calm, to ground, to balance. What do you think about that? Have you ever encountered a person or a situation that soothed you from the inside out deeply? They soothed you so much that how you appear or how you are normally in the world, you're completely the opposite, which means I'll use myself as an example. I go from being a wildfire, which means I burn shit ferociously and fast, to being shy, meek, alluring, enchanting. Yeah, what do you think about that? Now, how is it possible that someone can basically, a ferocious wildfire can burn shit down like that in an instant, can be turned into something completely different? Now, let's keep in mind, the same energy and ferociousness that was there originally, it's still there. It's just been transformed into a different type of energy. So let's be clear. There's no bipolar disorder. There's no multiple personality disorder. There's none of that. It's the same person, the same being, but the energy, the personality, the persona is being shifted depending on who you're around, which is why I say a number of different times for people, be careful who you surround yourself with, because that will show different sides of who you are. Some people bring out your best. Some people bring out your not so best. But what's even more special I'm learning is not people who bring out your best and not so best. It's a person who can take that ferociousness, that intensity of who you are, and I like to say transform or transmute it into a different aspect of yourself. Actually, I wouldn't say it's a different aspect of yourself. It's actually who you are. Yeah, it's who you are. So I'm going to use myself as an example. Typically, I'm seen as intense, ferocious, wild Siberian tiger, because most people, like I said, they're doing stupid shit. They're poking me the wrong goddamn way. But then you have someone who comes along who's a whisperer and who soothes you so well, so much that the actual person that you are, which is very feminine, very meek, very demure, very alluring, temptress, enchantress, seductress, call it whatever you want. That person brings out that part of you, which is actually who you are. So you're like, damn, what the fuck is that? So you're going around pretending? I would say there's no pretending. There's no pretending at all. But due to circumstances and people, you show different aspects of yourself. So if you never have an opportunity to be in an environment around people who can bring out your true essence of who you are, you will always think that you are meant to be a wildfire, a wild Mustang, just popping off, when that's not the case. That's due to circumstances, environment, and people. So when you get a glimpse of who you are, which is meek, very alluring, very feminine, you see yourself transform into this different being. That should amaze you. That should intrigue you because it's possible. So what is my point? Who you think you may not be who you actually are. But it takes the right person, place, or thing to unveil who you are. Now, does that mean I'm not still fiery? I'm very fiery. But that fieriness can go from being used to being very feminine, very alluring. It can be used in that way, or it can be used to set your ass on motherfucking fire. Let's be clear. Both people are there. It all depends on how things are harmonizing, how things are coming together. So let's get back to dominance. For someone to be a quote unquote whisperer, like I said, to try to transform how you are in a moment in time, that is a real gift. And it shows dominance. It's dominance shown in a way that most people wouldn't even realize or acknowledge. That you can have that much of an influence, positive influence on a person without exerting force. That is a real gift. And here's the funny thing. It takes a very, very smart person to realize when they've met their match. Yeah, it takes a really smart person to say, I've met my match. Because when you meet your match, you can identify who you truly are, and you can really understand the role that you play. Whether it's the true dominant role or it's the true submitting role. And I can't judge that for any of you, but I'm just telling you that's something for you to think about. So let's talk about submission. And I don't want to use the word submission. I'm going to talk about surrender. Surrender. Surrender means you see things for what they are and you accept them. You embrace them. You invite them. And surrendering, there's nothing wrong with that, because if you're surrendering to the right thing, it's very fulfilling. It's very nurturing. It's very safe. It's secure. It's very protective. It fits. So why wouldn't you surrender to something that's very uplifting and beneficial to you? See, a number of us are in relationships, whatever relationship, friendships, romantic relationships, and you have two people who are trying to dominate. All that means is clash, 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 clash. How can both people dominate? How's that balance? Or you have two people who are submitting, surrendering. How the fuck anything gonna get done there? Where the real magic happens is when one assumes their natural position. When I say natural, I mean it's a gift. They know what the fuck they're doing and they know how to do it. In many different areas. They assume that position and the other can see it for what it is and accept their position, which is surrendering. And those two work harmoniously together. Now you're saying, why do you want to surrender? You want to be in the position of power. But what I'm here to tell you, both roles are powerful. You can't have one without the other. They both need each other. They need each other. But what you don't seem to understand is that the person who needs to dominate, they need to dominate because they're good at this shit. They know what the fuck they're doing. Which is why the person voluntarily chooses to surrender, because they acknowledge the fact that one knows what the fuck they're doing. And like I told you before, it takes a lot of trust and respect to surrender to someone and allow them to dominate and not bat an eye. Now for me, I wouldn't surrender to anyone except for someone really, really, really special. And that would be a more than likely a rare occurrence to happen. So if I do that, and I have done that, that should tell you how special you are, and that you are trusted and respected enough to assume that role in my life. And I don't take that very lightly. I take it very, very seriously. And I understand that if I surrender to you, I know that you take it very seriously. And you understand and you accept what comes with that in every way, shape, or form. You see, whether you're dominating, you're surrendering, both are quite intriguing to see how it plays out. And it plays out in many, many different areas. When you think of surrendering and dominance, you think of it in the sexual realm, in the bedroom. But no, it comes out in many different ways. It's quite fluid to see how it balances each other out. So if you are in circumstantial situations where there is not harmony, people do not understand their role or place, and there's clashing. When I say clashing, people are going to have disagreements. But I mean, there's a type of clash where there's disruption. There's not harmony. You can't have two fucking executive chefs in the kitchen. Only one can lead, and the rest follow through. Listen to what I said. There has to be one who sets the tone and vision, and the rest follows through on carrying that through. So if you cannot do that, you cannot see that, and you have two people both trying to set the tone, the pace, that shit's not working. There's no balance. It doesn't match. It doesn't go together. That means one or both are choosing not to dominate or not to surrender, or to surrender and not dominate. It doesn't matter. It's called yin yang. It's called balance. It's called balance. And the one that dominates, it's a part of their being. It's a part of their soul. It's a part of their core. They have no choice but to do it. It gives them life. Do you understand? That is what I'm talking about. The person that has to dominate has to dominate. If you don't need that, it's not a part of your core, your being, your soul, it doesn't give you that rush, then that means that more than likely, you are the surrendering type. Yes, you're the surrendering type. And that's one of the things that I learned about myself. But I also know that I don't surrender to just any motherfucker. Let's be clear. Because if it's not the right person, then what you get is you get beast mode from me. You get that fiery mode from me. Because that means I don't trust you. It means you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And it means I am not being looked after or cared for well under a canopy. So if you are under the wrong canopy, because you don't feel safe, secure, protected, looked after, then that means you need to move the fuck from that canopy and move on to another. Because when it's the right canopy, you feel uplifted, you feel cared for, you feel fulfilled, you feel secure, you feel safe, you feel guided. It just fits right. There's no question about it. You don't even have to discuss it, because it naturally comes together and flows in that rhythm. When it's right, you automatically assume the right role. Listen to what the fuck I said. If you have to negotiate and figure out who's going to do what, that means you people are not compatible. But two compatible people, the shit just flows together and it's right. Because if I don't have to worry about dominating, and I can sit the fuck back and chill and know that my ride will be even better than what I could do. Yes, this is what the fuck I said. If I can sit the fuck back and know that the ride, the journey that I'm on will be much better without my hands on the wheel, because I know that someone knows better than me and knows what the fuck they're doing, then you know what? I will happily sit the fuck back and get chauffeured without batting an eye. Simple as that. Let me say it again. A number of us in life assume a position of dominance or whatever role because of circumstances and people that are around us that we're involved in. But it may not be our natural inclination. And if you're doing something that's not your natural inclination, it's very tiring, it's very exhausting, it's very depleting, because you are going against your very nature, you're going against your very core. It's kind of like a form of protection, it's a form of survival. So when you have a chance in your life to do something that is more in line, more in tune with who you are as a being, you should take that opportunity, because it doesn't come along very often. It's like a gift. If you know how to surrender, and your preference is to surrender and to be canopied, and you have that, take that shit. Trust your instincts and take that shit. Because if someone is offering you a canopy and you trust and respect and care very, very much for that person that's offering you that canopy, then you should know that you're going to be well taken care of on many, many different levels. And then you get to sit the fuck back and enjoy life. And you get to sit back and watch that other person do what they do very, very, very well. Dominating is not easy. But for those who are good at it, I tell you, it makes them radiate, it makes them shine. So, you need to think very carefully about who you are and what flows very easily to you. And sometimes you encounter people, situations, or things that will unveil who you really are. And who you really are may not look like what you actually thought. And you have to be prepared to embrace that. And that's one thing I'm learning about myself. I've been ferocious for so long because I've had to be, that when I get glimpses of myself being very feminine, very alluring, enchanting, meek, shy, it's quite amusing to see the transformation. It's also very refreshing. Yes, it's very refreshing to have that lifted off of my shoulders, which means I can sit back and I can relax because I know that I'm good. I know that I'm in the right company and I'm good. So if you find yourself in a situation where you are sighing with a big sense of relief, that may be a sign to you that you're probably not very dominant, even though you may appear to be. And if you have the chance to surrender, you should do so. And if you, being a natural dominant one, have the opportunity to extend your canopy over one in the most loving, caring, protective, guiding manner, you should jump at that. Because that is a very harmonious, zen, balanced type of situation that works very, very well. So don't think because you've seen complete ferociousness that that is what it actually is. People's ferociousness can be a form of armor, can be a form of protection. It's like a dog barking or a lion roaring. It's a way for survival. But a true dominant person, they don't do all that barking. They're silent, they're confident, they're very thoughtful, and they're very strategic, which means it comes very naturally to them. Your gifts are your gifts and you can't change that shit. All you can do is try your best to align yourself with a dominant canopy or someone who is intelligent enough to realize I'm best when I surrender. I'm more enchanting when I surrender. I'm more attractive when I surrender. I'm very alluring. Right? Very alluring. I like to say a temptress, an enchantress. Yeah. Very alluring, very magical. What does that mean? I'm equally as powerful, but my power comes through in a different way. And I'm happy to do it that way. So don't get confused and don't question. What you see is what is. The dynamic that is there, it's for real. That is what it is. That is what it will be. Just because what is displayed to others does not mean that that applies to you. What applies to you is what you have seen, what you've experienced day in and day out. What you see is exactly what you get and what you will continue getting. You cannot get what the others receive because they're not a whisperer, which means they don't know what the fuck they're doing. But the real person knows how to harness that intensity of a person and bring out the meek side, the passionate side, the funny side, the adventurous side. That's what a true dominating person is able to do. They can basically get different wonderful aspects from a person because they're truly gifted. So, moral of the story. Surrendering is not a problem. just like dominating is not a problem. Know your role, know your position, and do that shit. And how you mark your dominance, it's a personal choice. But what I want to say is that it was said and it was done. Now, isn't that special? One sentence, one request, and it was delivered. That is a sign of harmony. That is a sign of Zen. There's no asking multiple times. And one thing I just realized, guys, is that I'm not sure you know that with a real healthy, balanced, loving, dominating, submitting, surrendering type of role, is very fulfilling for both parties. It's very fulfilling. The person that's surrendering gets great intrigue, amusement, a state of awe, and watching the mastery of one and how they dominate in different ways, whether it be actions, speech. It's amazing to watch it happen. And it's very, very fulfilling. It's very surprising. You can't predict what's going to happen. And the strength and the power behind it is very intoxicating. So when you can get in a situation that you find a person intoxicating in a good way, so intoxicating that it puts you in a trance, then you know you're surrendering to the right one. That it leaves you fulfilled in a state of awe and anticipating the next time and more. So if you haven't figured it out, you're good at what you do. And I want you to know it's been noticed. It's been noticed for a very, very, very long time. And one looks forward to it, very much so. It's a breath of fresh air. It's a breath of relief. It's a breath, it's just a sigh of peace, settlement, comfort, and home. And that is how you know you're surrendering to the right one. And that is how you know you're dominating the right one. So if you have any questions about dominating, surrendering, submission, just hit me up. But I want you to know that dominating and submission is not just in the bedroom. That can happen there too. That's another dynamic component. But it happens in many different areas of our life. And it's very important for us to be with people that we are complementary and supplementary to one another. We balance one another out. It's harmony. And when I say harmony, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have disagreements. But those disagreements, they're minor because everything is just fluid. It works together like a well-running engine. So I want to say thank you to you for sharing and helping to unveil many different aspects of oneself that didn't know existed at all, that you didn't know existed at all. And it's very refreshing, extremely refreshing to sit the fuck back and chill in life and actually be chauffeured. So think about what I said, figure out what positional role you play, and then do that shit well and find someone who can work with you. Until the next time.